Welcome guys, this is Ella from Stop.io channel. Today we are comparing Life is Strange Protagonist. This is like an ultimate comparison video that I wanted to do for a while. Soon after finishing True Colors, I did a poll on my Twitter. You can follow me, by the way. I asked, which is your favorite Life is Strange protagonist? Obviously, the protagonists that I focused on were Sean, Max, and Alex. I also added Chloe, even though I'm not really certain if we can consider her full valid Life is Strange protagonist. I mean, she is, of course, and Before the Storm it was a prequel, and she's a side character, well, still an important one, but she's not the protagonist of Life is Strange itself. However, I still think it's okay to add her, so I added Chloe. I did not add Chris because of limited options on Twitter, but I also think that Chris just wouldn't stand. Like, he's a loved character by many. I myself adore him, but don't really consider him a full valid important protagonist per se. Okay, so we are going to compare the protagonists. For protagonists, we are going to focus on certain qualities, like how important they are, how interesting they are, how did they do in the game. We are going to discuss their powers, we are going to discuss their realism, their credibility as characters, we are going to discuss how cringy they were, if they were. We are going to discuss their relationships and just basically try to figure out which one was the most interesting protagonist. Well, obviously I will show my favorite one. We'll see how that goes. Right, so Alex. According to Life is Strange wiki page, Alex is described as sharp, witty and hardened from her time in foster care. Due to nature of her powers, she is also highly observant, sensitive to the needs of others. While initially shy towards most people she meets, she is generally friendly and approachable. Max is geeky, quite introverted, slightly self-conscious, particularly when it comes to her photography. According to Max, she prefers to observe the world around her over participating in it. Because of it, several students, including Juliet Watson, think she doesn't care much about others, but on the contrary, she makes a genuine effort to show kindness to all of Blackwell's students. Sean is described as creative, sensitive and protective. Sean's creative side is shown by making drawings in a sketchbook his father had purchased, who seems to have encouraged Sean to draw. Chloe is a stubborn, mischievous and rebellious young woman. She's the archetypal punk rocker expressed in both her music taste and style. She loves to get high, drink beer, and can be described as bold and outgoing. Yeah, so that's the gist of the characters that we know and like anyway. Let's start with their age. Alex is 21, Max is 18, Sean is 16, and Chloe, Before the Storm, Chloe is also 16. Personally, I have to give it to Alex. I just prefer older color characters. While I really appreciated the coming of age vibe that the original game had, I dig it, I love it. I think it was just easier to relate to a young adult, personally speaking, than someone who doesn't really have their personality fully shaped yet, like Max did. And then we have Sean and Chloe, which are your typical teenagers. So while that's a lot of fun, I think personally speaking, I have to give it to Alex. Now the good stuff. Powers. Alex's power was empathy. She was able to read other people's emotions, like there were colors around these people. She was even able to read their minds, sort of. It's a pretty interesting power, really well done in the True Colors game. It was fun and easy to navigate that power. Like other powers, it was also like a metaphor, sort of. I really appreciated Alex using it. It made the game more fun. And I gotta say the same about Max's power, time rewinding thing. Obviously it was also a metaphor, trying to fix things that you regret doing, trying to fix things that went wrong in your life. Max did it. Max was rewinding time, and again, it was really cool to navigate it. It was interesting and worked really well. I think it actually brought many people in and like encouraged many people to play the game. I actually read some opinions. People claim that once they heard that you can sort of go back in time, which is a popular trope in like movies, that it brought them in. They actually bought the game because of it. So that's really cool. Sean had no powers. Now, I've been discussing that in my Life is Strange 2 reviews. Sean had no powers, and that made him less interesting. Daniel was using powers. He was able to pull up objects. He was able to use his mind to like move around things. Objects would fly around. While it was a cool power, I found it a bit pointless, and maybe the game would have been more interesting if it was actually Sean using some kind of a power, maybe not even that. Unfortunately, well, Sean loses in that. And then there's Chloe. She never had any powers either. She was able to do the backtalk thing, but that's not really a power. It was just something that before the Storm developers came up with, and it was okay, but it's not why we played Before the Storm, really. When it comes to most interesting family backstory, we probably have to give it to Chloe because of the way William died, because of how it shaped everything that's been happening around her, how it triggered all the events basically because of William's death. So much happened between Max and Chloe. Partially Max stopped talking to Chloe because she just didn't know what to say when she moved. It made Chloe who she is, as harsh as it sounds. She's a pretty troubled person, and she was really depressed when she met Rachel. She met Rachel and she became friends with her, or like a couple even. It all led to Life is Strange events, so that's pretty major what happened to Chloe. When it comes to William, because it was a known in pop culture point of no return, William's death in Chloe's life. Max, we don't know much about her family. We read her parents' text messages, but that's like kind of boring. Like there's nothing in there, there's nothing to it, not much at least. Alex's backstory when it comes to her family is pretty interesting. She was giving away to a foster care after her mother's death. She was trying to take care of the family of Gabe and her dad, but her dad wasn't really making it work, and he gave her up. He gave up Gabe, so they ended up separated for many years, which again led to True Colors events. I found that really interesting and quite believable. Like, I totally can see that happening. The only thing I'm wondering about is if it would be a thing to do in Asian culture, sort of. Sean's family, that's a very interesting one. We know that he had an amazing dad, Esteban. We know that he loved him a lot. We know that Esteban did the contrary to what Alex's dad did, so he didn't give up on his children. After his wife left him, he was taking care of both Sean and Daniel. I'm going to not comment on Daniel. He just never really, well, yeah, I'm just not a big fan of Daniel. But Esteban was great. And then there's Karen Diaz, their mother, who left them because she didn't feel up to be a parent, which was criticized by many people, but it also made her quite interesting, and it was fun getting to know her. And Life is Strange episode, Life is Strange 2 one, that's probably a draw, but given the sentiment I have towards Life is Strange story and probably the impact it had, I'm gonna say William's death. That's the most interesting backstory, so I'm gonna give that one to Chloe. Love interest and sexual orientation. That's also a good one. When it comes to Max, you can romance either Chloe or Warren. It's not really clear in these games if that makes the main character bisexual, or does it make them straight or gay according to your choice, because these are choices based games. But I don't know. I feel like that's not really that cool towards bisexual characters, because in games, bisexuality always ends up not acknowledged enough. You rarely see actual bisexual characters. It's either gay or straight according to your choice. That's what it felt like in Life is Strange. So you had Warren, which was a semi-interesting option, and then you had Max and Chloe, which was, the big thing, the thing that brought many people to Life is Strange, and which made many people stay with the franchise and with the game. So Max and Chloe, as you see on the poster behind me. Yeah, but let's discuss other things before I claim Max's victory in that one. Sean, because we kept moving around in Life is Strange 2 and we were meeting new people in each episode, it didn't feel like we were able to create a deep bond with anyone. There was Cassidy and there was Flynn. Again, I'm not really certain if it made Sean bisexual or did it make him either gay or straight according to your choice. There was Lila beginning of the game. That was a very interesting character that sadly Life is Strange 2 did not pursue, so that's a shame because they could have made it an interesting point of the game, having shown a relationship with Lila. Maybe if it was Sean and Lila that ran away, maybe with Daniel, fine. It would have been more interesting, but they didn't pursue that, even though there was definitely some chemistry in there. So I'd like to think that Sean maybe was bisexual. Cassidy was an interesting character, but we only met her briefly, so there was no time to form a proper bond. And Finn, I found him actually, well, okay, but kind of annoying with the whole heist thing. So I can't really say that that's as nice. Alex, that's another good one. We were all crazy about Steph and just the idea of her coming back to the franchise after she was presented in Before the Storm. Again, maybe Alex is bisexual, maybe she's gay, maybe she's straight, according to your choice. You never really know with these games. Both romantic options when it comes to Alex were so interesting. Not only Steph, but also Ryan. Like, I really wanted to romance Steph, and I did in my stream, in my playthrough. But Ryan was a genuinely tempting option. Like, I was really considering dropping Steph at some point because Ryan was just so cool. So they really outdid themselves, and they did more than Life is Strange did, because Warren did not seem as just as tempting option as Ryan was in Before the Storm. So yeah, there's that. Then you have Chloe in Before the Storm. That's also a very good one. Life is Strange franchise, maybe apart from Life is Strange 2, they work really well with relationships. We had Rachel in Before the Storm, and their story, whether it was a romantic one or a friendship one, it was just so immersive, and it was great playing it. I absolutely loved it. So I'm gonna say it's a draw. Like, I can't really pick. I'm gonna say Max and Chloe because, well, Max and Chloe because it's the essence of Life is Strange, but can't really say that Alex and Steph was any less interesting. I'm gonna give it to Max, but I'm not really like 100% convinced. Now let's have a look at the way all the protagonists dealt with the events that happened to them. When it comes to Max, I've been thinking about it, and it doesn't quite feel like it happened to Max, you know? I feel like partially everything that happened in Life is Strange was mostly about Chloe and what happened to Chloe, about William's death, about Rachel's disappearance, looking for Rachel, potentially dying. And Max, even though a protagonist, still felt like an important one, but a side character or like an observer of things that were happening. So it's hard to judge how she was really dealing with it. Obviously, she stepped up when it comes to protecting Chloe if you decided to save Chloe, or she stepped up and she decided to protect the city. It's just annoying because there were so many other possibilities. Like, Max could have warned the city about the tornado. She could have warned the Arcadia Bay knowing that the tornado would happen. So there's just certain logical issues in there, so I cannot really give it to Max considering all of that I have said. Another not as logical behavior was the way Sean dealt with it. What happened to him, accidental shooting of the policeman and Esteban's death. He decided to run away to Mexico with like, what, $12 in his pocket. So that wasn't logical. I know that he was just 16 years old, but even a 16 years old guy, smart one especially, should know that he just won't make it to Mexico with $10 in his pocket. It's just not possible. I know that he knew that his father had some land in there, so he found this to be a good idea to go there, but what would he actually do? Like, would he just show up to Mexico and claim a land he doesn't even know where it is? So even though I know that he was trying to protect Daniel most of all, and he thought that he was doing the right thing, it was just, generally speaking, a quite stupid idea to go to Mexico. So I can't give it to Sean either. Chloe and Alex, like these two, I have to say they were probably burdened with the most. Alex's story is quite sad, like dealing with her mother's death, then dealing with being abandoned by her father, and then being separated from her brother Gabe for many years, being in foster care and not being picked ever by anyone. That's so much to deal with, and I have to say she did it wonderfully. Like, I feel like she actually ended up being an amazing young adult. She handled it so well. She knew how to survive. She did that. So she ended up being quite strong, and that's what I admire about her. So that's pretty cool. Chloe, I'm not certain if she handled it all that well, but we cannot also blame her because people react to traumatic events in different ways. It's hard to judge. She was quite depressed with everything that's happened to William, greeting David into her life, Rachel, and everything that happened to her. Considering all of these circumstances, she did well, but well, according to some people, she ended up a bit snarky at times. So I think I'm gonna have to give it to Alex, while not saying that Chloe did not handle it all that well, because obviously she had some serious mental issues that we just cannot judge. This may be an odd subcategory, but I think it would be nice to discuss our characters in terms of being cringy. And Alex was not really cringy, like some of her jokes were a bit geeky, but that's fine. Sean wasn't really cringy. In fact, for a 16 years old, he was quite a serious teenager. Chloe was not really cringy. I think I just did that category to place Max in there. Because with all the Shaka Brown, all these things that she kept saying, it was a bit cringy at times. But I don't know if it was Dontnod's conscious choice to make her that way, or did they actually think that teenagers speak that way? Yeah, it ended up a bit odd at times. Like, obviously this is part of the game's charm, but I still feel like I needed to point it out. The way they look. Obviously, I don't want to be some sort of a creep and judge if they're attractive or whatever, but I just want to discuss their looks in terms of being interesting. I feel like Max, Sean, and Alex, they were quite safe when it comes to clothes. There were some comments in Life is Strange about Max wearing jeans and generic t-shirts, so there's that. Obviously, I don't think she found her style yet, like Chloe said. Sean, while running away to Mexico, I guess he didn't really have time to go shopping and find nice clothes. He was wearing a nice blouse with the wolf thing, but it was still pretty basic and not really that interesting. Alex was wearing nice clothes, especially if you paid for that. And she looked nice, like she had her own style, I'd say, sort of an indie style. However, I'm gonna give it to Chloe, obviously, like as a punk rock person. She definitely made her style quite expressive when it comes to her personality, the way she was, what music she liked and all of that. So I'm giving that one to Chloe. Relatability. I'm gonna start with Chloe. I noticed some players it was quite important. Some players went through some traumatic events. Some players went through anger and depression just like Chloe did. So I know that, even though personally that's not the case for me, I know that for some players having Chloe the way she was, it was quite important to some players. So that's really cool, and I'm glad that some people were able to find an expression of themselves in a game's protagonist. I also know that some male players were able to relate to Sean, so that's really nice, and I think that's the point of these games. We find something in some protagonists or side characters, some parts of ourselves in them. Personally, I think I could relate the most to Max back in the day when I played it for the first time. But now I would definitely say Alex. She's a young adult and it's just easier to relate to. The way she was created as a whole felt quite believable, which leads me to next category, which is realism. The way they were presented, if it was actually realistic. Max felt like a character that possibly would not really exist in real life. Like, she was lovely. I absolutely love Max and all, but she didn't feel like a real person sometimes. Not in the way that Alex did. Alex really felt like a real person with all the nuances to her personality. She felt like a person that I could actually meet somewhere out there. While Max felt exaggerated in a way. Like, I know that Dontnod was trying to present your typical shy teenager, but it felt exaggerated, while Alex's way of dealing with everything that's happened to her, it actually felt like something that could happen to someone out there. Sean, well, I don't feel like he had much time to process everything that's happened to him. Not only that, like he ran off to Mexico, and I just can't find it really believable making that sort of a choice. Chloe, she was kind of believable. I know that some people react to events in an aggressive way. Some people react with depression and with being moody. So that's the way Chloe was. But also, partially, I do feel like she was maybe slightly exaggerated. General likability. This is the final category. I can't say that any of these protagonists was not likable. I loved Alex, I loved Max, I really liked Sean, and obviously I liked Chloe. We liked them for many different reasons, because we find them relatable, because we reacted the same way to similar events in our lives. Generally speaking, Life is Strange did a splendid job creating all these protagonists, and it's hard saying which one is the most likable, but I can definitely say which protagonist is my favorite one. I am torn between Max and Alex. I like them both so much. They were easiest one to relate to when it comes to me. When I was younger, I feel like I was more like Max, partially. When I was older, I would say Alex would be more relatable. But if I have to pick my absolute favorite, I would still probably say Max, but it's almost a draw when it comes to Max and Alex. I like Sean and Chloe, but I could never really fully relate to them. Now, when it comes to poll results, let's announce that. I did a poll on Twitter, and I asked you, who's your absolute favorite Life is Strange protagonist? Retweets are welcome. I want this to be as representative as possible. Almost 1,500 people voted, so that's great. Thank you for all your votes. Let's have a look at the results. Max, 34.5%. Sean Diaz, 14%. Alex Chen, 30%. Chloe Price, 20%. So it turns out Max wins. Maybe it's because we are sentimental and we are nostalgic about the first game. I know it definitely plays a factor when it comes to me. I know that Alex possibly got as many votes because I asked you straight after finishing True Colors, so I guess it was sort of biased because people were still hyped about True Colors and people would vote for Alex because it was fresh, it felt fresh. Sean didn't get as many votes, which is a shame. He was a nice character, but I guess he wasn't as characteristic as others. Right, so let's discuss that in the comments. Let me know who your favorite protagonist is. I'm gonna leave 4 comments and you can leave likes, basically. So let's sort of do the voting thing again, but this time under the video. Big shout out to my patrons. Thank you so much for your support. I appreciate it so very much, and everyone who's ever supported me. I often get offered to make some sort of a advertisement on my channel. I get many emails when it comes to that, but I don't want to do that right now. And so any other support is just much appreciated when it comes to setting up my studio and all of that. But I don't want to bore you with that. Please join my Discord server. It's such a nice server filled with amazing people. Remember, when you join, you have to accept the rules. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, guys. This was all from Stop Me O channel. Bye.